In February 2001, 41-year-old mother of three, Janet Jones Luxford, left her Florida home. She met Brian Jones, a truck driver, at a Jacksonville hotel where she worked. The two subsequently traveled together, arriving in Bessemer, Alabama. Janet never returned home, prompting one of her daughters to report her missing in 2002. Despite sustained efforts by investigators over the next 2 decades, no trace of Janet was ever found. The case grew cold, leaving her family to face 2 decades without closure or answers. 21 years after Janet vanished, the silence surrounding her cold case was finally broken by guilt. On March 27, 2022, the perpetrator, Brian Jones, took a bus from South Carolina to Alabama. Jones sat outside the Bessemer police station, visibly struggling to find the courage to turn himself in. He eventually walked inside and fully confessed to the crime. Lieutenant Christian Clemens noted that Jones appeared enormously remorseful and greatly relieved. Clemens described this profound event as a once-in-a-career type of situation. Jones, speaking to Bessemer police, revealed the context of the fatal incident. He confirmed he and Janet were romantically involved while he was working as a day laborer. The conflict that led to the violence began when Janet requested money to return to her parents in California. Jones claimed the argument quickly grew out of hand inside a motel located in the 1100 block of 9th Avenue Southwest in Bessemer. He confessed to striking Janet in the throat with a club during the heated exchange. Crucially, Jones insisted to the police that the subsequent demise of Janet was accidental. The day following his confession, on March 28, 2022, Brian Jones accompanied police investigators to the dumping location. This site was where he had left Janet's body back in 2001. Upon searching the area, authorities quickly discovered a green suitcase containing skeletal remains. The Jefferson County Coroner's Office utilized medical records alongside DNA evidence to conclusively confirm the identity of the remains as Janet Jones Luxford. A detective confirmed that this disappearance was not a case currently active on the investigators' radar until Jones's voluntary confession initiated the search. Following the discovery and identification of the remains, Brian Jones faced formal charges. In May 2022, he was officially charged with slaying and abuse of a corpse. Jones was subsequently transported to the Jefferson County Jail, where he was held under a high $765,000 bond. On October 7, 2024, the case reached its conclusion when Jones pleaded guilty to ending Janet's life. This guilty plea was part of a specific deal where the charge of abuse of a corpse was ultimately dropped. Jones received a sentence of 21 years in state prison, symbolizing 1 year for every year Janet had been tragically missing since 2001. Janet's daughter, Amanda Luxford Fernandez, spoke about the profound impact of her mother's sudden disappearance. She stated that the uncertainty haunted her and her 2 siblings for over 2 decades. Fernandez shared that the family felt immense relief, knowing that the only silver lining was confirmation her mother did not intentionally choose to stay away for 21 years. Expressing mixed emotions, she conveyed that the family was happy to be getting answers after the long search. Fernandez concluded with the powerful statement that they would also going to get some justice. The timeline begins on Wednesday, January 9th, 2002, moments after 8 a.m., 12-year-old Ashley Pond was running late for her classes at Gardner Middle School in Oregon City, Oregon. Ashley left the New Creek Village apartments, where she lived with her mother, Lori Pond, to walk the 10-minute route to the local bus stop. She never boarded the bus and did not arrive at school that morning. Her abrupt disappearance triggered a comprehensive response involving local authorities and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Ashley was a popular student, active on both the swim and dance teams. She was not regarded by her mother, friends, or investigators as someone who had voluntarily run away. Despite the immediate, extensive deployment of resources, no viable clues surfaced regarding the 12-year-old's mysterious location. 2 months following Ashley Pond's vanishing, the investigation was shaken by a second, equally troubling event. On March 8th, 13-year-old Miranda Gaddis, Ashley's friend and neighbor, disappeared in an identical manner while en route to the same bus stop. Miranda's mother, Michelle Duffy, discovered her daughter's absence after leaving for work approximately 30 minutes before Miranda was scheduled to catch the bus. Upon confirming Miranda was not at school, Michelle immediately alerted law enforcement. Investigators searched the area, but once again came up empty, finding no physical evidence or indication of a struggle. Authorities rapidly concluded that both missing persons cases were almost certainly connected. They suspected the perpetrator was known within the community, targeting girls who were close in age, involved in similar activities, looked remarkably alike, and vanished from the same bus route. Ward Weaver III quickly emerged as a primary suspect in the investigation shortly after Miranda's disappearance. Although he was questioned by police early on and had a clear connection to both victims, the Federal Bureau of Investigation required a frustrating 8 months to finally secure a warrant to search his property. The missing girls, Ashley and Miranda, were friends with Weaver's 12-year-old daughter and attended the same dance class. Ashley, in particular, was a frequent house guest at the Weaver residence. She had even accompanied the family on a California vacation the previous year. This trip included a visit to Weaver's father, who was identified as a Capitol Row inmate and known for having buried a perpetrator victim in his own yard. Weaver himself was a 39-year-old toolmaker, but he also possessed a documented history of violence against women, substantiated by allegations from both of his ex-wives. The investigation pivoted sharply on August 13th due to a critical call made by Ward Weaver III's son, Francis. Francis contacted 911 to report that his father had attempted to indecently assault his 19-year-old girlfriend. The traumatized girlfriend fled the Weaver house naked and informed responding police officers that Weaver had indecently assaulted her before attempting to smother her. Crucially, Francis revealed a devastating detail to the dispatcher. His father confessed that he had ended the lives of both missing girls, Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis. Weaver was promptly arrested, but on these unrelated charges concerning the assault of his son's girlfriend. This immediate apprehension was a key development, finally providing law enforcement with the essential legal grounds to successfully obtain a formal warrant to search the property of their prime suspect, thus escalating the investigation into its critical next phase. The comprehensive search of Ward Weaver III's property commenced on August 24th, spearheaded by Federal Bureau of Investigation agents. Inside a box located within Weaver's storage shed, investigators made the initial tragic discovery: the confirmed remains of Miranda Gaddis. The very next day, the agents uncovered the second, equally grim finding. Ashley Pond's remains were located buried beneath a freshly poured concrete slab that Weaver had recently installed, under the guise of preparing a base for a new hot tub. An immediate and formal autopsy procedure was conducted to scientifically confirm the identities of the remains belonging to both young girls. Relatives of both Ashley and Miranda voiced intense frustration and deep devastation after learning that the girls' bodies had been hidden in the immediate neighborhood the entire time, tragically situated right under the noses of the ongoing investigation. A public memorial was held for the two victims in the late summer of 2002 to honor their lives. The families of the two victims had previously endured significant suffering and pain. Both Ashley and Miranda had tragically been indecently abused prior to their abductions. Ashley was victimized by her own father, who received probation after pleading guilty to the crime. Miranda was abused by a former boyfriend of her mother's, a man sentenced to 75 months in jail. Weaver himself had a history of violence, and, in 2001, Ashley had accused him of molesting her, an allegation he denied, which resulted in no formal charges being filed. On October 2nd, the legal process commenced when Weaver was indicted and charged with 16 counts, including aggravated slaying, abuse of a corpse, and indecent assault. To avoid the possibility of the death penalty, Weaver entered a plea deal in September 2004, pleading guilty to all charges and receiving 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. However, questions lingered regarding the investigative delay, particularly after an ex-wife, Christy Sloan, reported telling police early on about the cement poured 3 days after Miranda vanished. On July 23, 1991, the decomposing body of a small girl was discovered along the Henry Hudson Parkway in Manhattan, New York. Her remains were found sealed inside a navy blue cooler that had been filled with soda cans. The child's body was naked, bound tightly with rope and Venetian blind cord, and forced into a fetal position. Before being placed in the cooler, her body was wrapped in a garbage bag. Initial identification proved impossible due to the advanced state of decomposition, leading authorities to name her baby Hope. Forensic details indicated she was possibly Hispanic, had dark wavy hair tied back in a ponytail, and was severely malnourished, weighing only $28 \text, LB dollar, $13 \text, kid you dollar. Medical examiners estimated her age was between 3 and 5 years old and concluded she was a victim of indecent abuse, likely losing her life around July 18th. An eyewitness reported seeing a Hispanic man and woman carrying a cooler in the area where the body was located. Furthermore, suggestive images of a nude child, possibly matching her description, were located in New Jersey in the autumn of 1991. Following the initial investigation, the case of Baby Hope stalled, becoming a deeply cold case for over 2 decades. In 1993, the unidentified little girl was given a proper burial, funded by the police department, with approximately 200 people attending the funeral service. The pursuit of her identity did not cease, leading to the decision to exhume her body years later. In both 2006 and 2011, Baby Hope's remains were removed from the grave specifically to collect and analyze new DNA samples. Finally, in 2013, the case was officially reopened 22 years after the grim discovery. Detectives launched a renewed public campaign to gather critical information. This included canvassing the area near where the girl was found in the Bronx on the anniversary of her death, circulating numerous flyers, and actively announcing $8$$12,000 reward for any information that would lead to an arrest. This dedicated public effort proved to be significant in eventually generating the vital tip needed to break the long-standing case. The turning point arrived with an anonymous tip received by authorities. A woman reported that she had overheard a conversation 2 years earlier between a mother and another individual concerning her missing daughter. This crucial information directed investigators to Margarita Castillo. She was subsequently contacted by the police to provide a DNA sample for comparison with the samples obtained from the victim's remains. The DNA test results conclusively confirmed a match, establishing Margarita Castillo as Baby Hope's mother. After 22 years, the little girl's true identity was finally revealed: Anjelica Castillo. It was determined that Anjelica was one of 3 children born to Margarita. Her father, Renato Ramirez, was an abusive man who had taken 2 of his 3 children and vanished. Anjelica's mother mistakenly believed that Renato had taken both Anjelica and her sister back to Mexico, which accounted for why she had never filed a missing persons report. The true circumstances of Anjelica's location became clear. Her father, Renato Ramirez, had not taken her to Mexico as her mother believed. Instead, he abandoned the little girl in New York, placing her in the care of her adult female cousin, Balvina Juarez Ramirez. Anjelica was living with Balvina in an apartment located in Queens, which was reportedly shared by 7 relatives. The investigation then turned to Balvina's brother, Conrad Juarez, who was 30 years old when the alleged crime occurred. Juarez stated that he had seen Anjelica in the hallway of that Queens apartment. After investigators conducted a lengthy interrogation, Juarez ultimately broke and confessed on videotape to ****NTLY assaulting Anjelica, then smothering the child. This confession immediately established Conrad Juarez as the person responsible for the crime. The detailed plan for disposing of Anjelica's body emerged directly from Conrad Juarez's confession. Juarez described the harrowing moments immediately following the smothering. When the child went motionless, he summoned his sister, Balvina Juarez Ramirez, who was in another room of the apartment. She instructed him to get rid of the body immediately and provided the navy blue cooler that would later be discovered. Following her instruction, Juarez confessed to folding Anjelica's body in half, using rope and cord to tie her up, and then placing the body inside a garbage bag. Finally, he sealed the bag body within the cooler. Juarez and his sister then left the Queens apartment and hailed a cab to Manhattan. They proceeded to drop the cooler off in a wooded area adjacent to the Henry Hudson Parkway, then separated. The highly detailed, videotaped confession became the main evidence prosecutors intended to use against Juarez, though his attorney, Mr. Croce, later argued that the confession had been coerced by investigators. The investigation's conclusion led to the formal arrest of Conrad Juarez in October 2013, when he was 52 years old. By the time authorities apprehended him, his sister, Balvina Juarez Ramirez, who had assisted with the disposal of the body, had already passed away. The focus then shifted to the legal proceedings and the final fate of the perpetrator. Juarez spent 5 years awaiting his trial. Due to concerns regarding his safety, he was transferred from Rikers Island to the Rockland County Correctional Facility in 2015. Ultimately, Conrad Juarez never faced trial for the murder of Anjelica Castillo. He passed away in 2018 at Montefiore Nyack Hospital following serious complications related to his diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, bringing the case to its definitive, non-judicial resolution. In June 1985, the life of 40-year-old mother of 5, Ada Frances Senenfelder, ended abruptly inside her Winona, Minnesota apartment. The grim discovery began with a curious neighbor on the 500 block of East 4th Street. He and his wife had noticed Ada's television remained on all night, which they found highly unusual. Peering through the front room window, the neighbor observed the victim's body. She was visible, wedged between a bed and a wall in a room reportedly full of beds. After alerting a second neighbor, authorities were immediately contacted. The crime scene soon came alive with police officers and investigators. A Bureau of Criminal Apprehension team was urgently requested and began making its way to Winona. Hastily strung yellow ribbon secured the yard perimeter. As the investigation stretched late into the night, more than 100 people gathered along the sidewalks to observe the commotion. At that initial stage, the only statement police provided to the shocked Winona community was that Ada's cause of demise was not from natural causes. The morning after Ada's discovery, an autopsy revealed the brutal nature of the crime. She had sustained over 30 stab wounds, including a fatal wound to the heart, with injuries covering her face, neck, arms, and torso. Inside the home, investigators located a kitchen knife they suspected was the weapon, alongside blood smears on an internal door. Crucially, no signs of forced entry were detected. Investigators immediately focused on Ada's acquaintances, as family members insisted she had no known enemies. Details of her personal life were relevant. Her second husband was serving a 54-month prison sentence for criminal conduct. Her first husband was deceased. Ada's 5 children, aged 6 to 16, were all residing in foster homes. While she owned the crime scene apartment, Ada was reportedly living on and off with Clyde Dwayne Bobby Ford on Wilson Street, who was incarcerated for unrelated crimes at the time. Police followed numerous leads, questioned over 100 people, and even searched neighborhood garbage. Evidence found suggested multiple attackers were involved, but solid evidence remained elusive, leading the case to eventually grow cold. The origins of the violence began when Ada reported James Raymond Bolsted to the authorities for indecently assaulting her daughter in the summer of 1985. Bolsted was subsequently arrested for violating his probation. From jail, he angrily contacted his girlfriend, Linda Mae Parrish, instructing her that she must take care of things and compel Ada to recant her statement. Parrish enlisted John Willis Nisulke, a mutual friend, for assistance. The pair began actively harassing Ada, breaking into her apartment on multiple occasions and stealing personal belongings in a calculated attempt to intimidate her. This strategy eventually yielded results. Ada informed Bolsted's probation officer that she had fabricated the indecent assault allegations, a retraction Nisulke secretly recorded from an adjacent room. However, on June 5, 1985, Bolsted called Parrish from jail, angrily declaring the recantation was insufficient and he would remain incarcerated. Parrish, present at a party that evening, was overheard relaying this message and urging Bolsted's friends to escalate the situation. She explicitly told partygoers she would pay someone to end Ada's life. Nisulke, along with possibly others, left the gathering shortly after that call, proceeding to kill Ada in her bedroom. 2 decades after Ada Senenfelder's slaying, the investigation reached a critical turning point in 2006. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension's Cold Case Unit officially reopened the file. The renewed effort commenced with the public offering of a substantial $$50,000 reward for information. Crucially, technological advancements allowed for the reanalysis of forensic DNA evidence that had been collected from the 1985 crime scene. DNA extracted specifically from cigarette butts discovered inside Ada's residence provided the long-awaited breakthrough. This new genetic evidence led investigators directly to a specific individual, John Willis Nisulke. This concrete scientific link allowed law enforcement to officially connect Nisulke to the scene and ultimately provided the necessary foundation to charge the individuals responsible for Ada's death. On July 3, 2008, a grand jury formally indicted the trio connected to Ada Senenfelder's death. The accused included John Willis Nisulke for the slaying, Linda Mae Parrish for first-degree slaying, which was later reduced to manslaughter, and James Raymond Bolsted. The subsequent trial featured compelling witness testimony that solidified the case. One witness stated they observed Anjelica the very night of the incident with a bloodied hand, which was wrapped tightly in a white towel. This same witness, who resided in Ada's apartment building, further testified that Anjelica knocked on their door that night, requesting a flashlight because he claimed to have lost a knife. Another crucial witness alleged that both Anjelica and Parrish compensated them to assist in cleaning Parrish's apartment using ammonia and bleach on the day Ada's body was discovered. Additional testimony revealed Parrish instructed everyone who attended the party to deny that anyone left early that night. Furthermore, multiple witnesses stated that Anjelica had confessed to them over the years that he killed Ada because she was a snitch. The complex legal proceedings eventually brought resolution to the decades-long case. Linda Mae Parrish reached a plea agreement, pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit first-degree manslaughter, and crucially, she agreed to testify against her co-defendants. Parrish was ultimately released after serving approximately 21 months, credited for the time she had already spent in custody. In July 2009, John Willis Anjelica, despite pleading not guilty, was convicted on 4 felony charges. These included first-degree premeditated slaying, first-degree slaying while witness tampering, and 2 counts of aiding and abetting first-degree slaying. Anjelica received a life sentence, mandating a minimum of 14 years before he would be eligible for parole. James Raymond Bolstead, in December 2009, pleaded guilty to obstructing an investigation. He was sentenced to about 58 months but secured immediate release, having already served sufficient time while incarcerated on unrelated charges. Finally, the pursuit of justice concluded on March 21, 2024, when the Minnesota Supreme Court denied Anjelica's final appeal, thereby upholding the original verdict. On July 18, 2009, in the early hours of the morning, an unimaginable tragedy unfolded in North Epping, Sydney. 5 members of the Lin family were found deceased in their home. The victims included the proprietor, 45-year-old Min Lin, his wife, 43-year-old Young Lai Lin, their sons, 12-year-old Henry and 9-year-old Terry, and Min's sister-in-law, 39-year-old Irene Lin. The scene was discovered around 9 a.m. when the family's news agency failed to open. Min's sister, Kathy, and her husband, Lin bin Robert Sia, went to check on the family. They entered the house via the unlocked front door and were immediately confronted by the horrifying sight. Kathy struggled to explain the situation when she called for an ambulance. Police and paramedics quickly arrived, but all 5 victims were tragically pronounced deceased at the scene. The investigation immediately began focusing on the chilling details of the crime scene. All 5 family members were bludgeoned until their end. The violence inflicted was so severe that the bodies were bashed almost beyond recognition, necessitating forensic analysis for accurate identification. Crime scene investigators observed heavy blood spatter covering the area from floor to ceiling. Crucially, there was no evidence of forced entry or a break-in, which strongly suggested the perpetrator possessed a key. Furthermore, nothing had been ransacked or stolen from the residence. Forensic analysis determined the brutal attacks were initiated with a hammer-like object. Additionally, 4 of the 5 victims displayed supplementary signs of asphyxia. The investigation noted that the sole immediate family survivor, 15-year-old Brenda Lin, was absent on a school trip. It was clear the attacker never entered her room, indicating knowledge that she was not present. The case immediately drew intense public scrutiny. On July 29th, Min's sister Kathy and her husband Robert Sia made a public appeal, urgently seeking information about the crimes. This was followed by a large public family funeral held for the Lin family on August 8th. Meanwhile, the police investigation focused on critical forensic evidence. 24 bloody shoe prints were recovered at the scene. These prints, consistent with USI's $8 text, $1/2 to $10 text, $1/2, suggested a lone perpetrator. Key circumstantial evidence emerged when Kathy was informed by the New South Wales Crime Commission in May 2010 that police had located Asics sneaker shoe prints inside the Lin residence. Later, police surveillance footage captured Robert cutting up and disposing of shoe boxes. Crucially, forensic officers found a blood stain in Robert's garage, which was tested and confirmed to contain the DNA of 4 of the 5 victims. The evidence culminated in the arrest of Robert Sia on May 5, 2011, when he was formally charged with 5 counts of slaying. Authorities subsequently informed the media that Sia had emerged as their prime suspect approximately 6 months after the brutal incident. His path to trial was marked by multiple legal challenges. Specifically, his bail application was unsuccessful on December 22, 2011, and a further application to the New South Wales Supreme Court on March 29, 2012, was also denied. The legal proceedings spanned a significant period, involving 4 separate trials conducted between 2011 and 2016. The first 2 attempts concluded with hung juries, requiring further retrials. Finally, in January 2017, Robert Sia was found guilty by a majority verdict. The court heard during the trial that a key motive was Sia's deep resentment toward Min Lin, who was perceived as the more successful businessman in the extended family. His conviction and life sentences were upheld following an appeal to the New South Wales Court of Appeal in 2021. The devastating human aftermath centered on Brenda Lin, the family's sole immediate survivor. She was on a Year 10 French school trip in New Caledonia when she learned of her family's case via Facebook. Following the tragedy, Robert and Kathy Sia became her legal guardians, and they subsequently took over the operation of the news agent business. However, Brenda later alleged that she was abused by Robert during this guardianship period. Robert Sia remains incarcerated, serving 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, and he maintains his assertion of innocence. In the years since, Brenda has focused on advocacy. It was reported in May 2024 that she is an advocate for survivors of indecent abuse, having helped establish the Survivor Network, a network comprising 12 meetup hubs across Australia designed to assist other victims in their recovery process.